a number of respected authors described the power elite as a small group of people with a disproportionate amount of wealth, privilege, and access to governments around the world. At the top of this heap are the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. They own or control world banking and most of the known oil and gas reserves. Although membership in Club Elite is far more extensive than these two families, no one argues that these two are on top. No one. Don't you see? This is all about wealth management. If you control the money, you control the world. Money, not government, pulls the strings. Mayer Rothschild, founder of the Rothschild International Banking Dynasty, said,
"Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws."
The Rothschild banking dynasty is the stuff legends are made of. Their family's estimated wealth is in the trillions and exceeds the GDP of most of the countries of the world. They have offices in 34 countries, and every central bank in the world was founded, controlled, or is heavily influenced by this family, including our own Federal Reserve System, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. Very little happens in the world that they are not aware of or influence. In the United States, the Rockefellers are our royalty. At one time, Standard Oil, which was started by John D. Rockefeller, owned 92% of the world's oil production and distribution. On May 15, 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court declared the Standard Oil Group to be an unreasonable monopoly. It ordered Standard to break up into 34 independent companies. In spite of this breakup, though, John D. Rockefeller maintained 25% of the stock in these 34 companies, many of which have merged and been sold to become the largest companies in the world, such as Exxon from Standard Oil of New Jersey, Mobil, Standard Oil of New York, Chevron, Standard Oil of California, Amoco, Standard Oil of Indiana, Arco, Standard Oil Trust, Conoco, Standard Oil Trust, Marathon, Standard Oil of Ohio, and British Petroleum, which was a partial merger with Standard Oil of Ohio. 25% ownership of the world's wealthiest and most powerful oil companies was not enough for this family. They also became a banking powerhouse. Rockefeller's banking dynasty began in 1910 at an exclusive club on Jekyll Island. This is when his point men, along with Paul Warburg, a Kuhn Loeb partner, and the Morgan men laid the groundwork for what was to become the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, establishing our Federal Reserve System and its 12 Federal Reserve Banks. Coincidentally, every one of these original banks was also a recipient of federal bailout money.
In November of 1910, under the guise of a duck hunting trip, 6 men took a secret train ride to an exclusive private club on Jekyll Island, Georgia, to write a central banking act. The classified gathering read like a who's who of American banking. There were 2 Rockefeller men, Aldrich and Frank Vanderlip of the National City Bank of New York, 2 Morgan men, Henry P. Davidson from Morgan Bank and Charles D. Norton, president of Morgan's First National Bank of New York, Paul Warburg, a Kuhn Loeb partner, and Assistant Treasury Secretary A. P. Andrew, who was friendly to both camps. They spent a week at the luxurious club as Morgan's guests, crafting the proposals that would form the basis of the Federal Reserve System. It would be 3 years before their vision was realized. Just before Christmas 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was passed by Congress and signed by President Wilson.
Within 3 years of signing this act, President Wilson realized the horrible mistake he had made and said,
"The growth of the nation and all our activities are in the hands of a few men, no longer a government of free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the free vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men."
Listen to what Louis T. McFadden, chairman of the Banking and Currency Committee in the House of Representatives for 10 years, had to say in 1932.
Henry Ford said, "It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. Some people think the Federal Reserve Banks are United States government institutions. They are not government institutions. They are private credit monopolies which prey upon the people of the United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers.
Our Federal Reserve System has been wrapped in secrecy for close to 100 years. If there is nothing to hide about our Federal Reserve System, then full transparency, full disclosure, and real change should be a reality and not just a campaign slogan. On and on it goes. Americans are told that the Fed is controlling inflation and ensuring full employment, yet according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, what you could buy for $3,000 in 1913 would require $65,400 in 2009. That's right, 2,180% inflation. And unemployment is the highest it has been in 26 years. Now fast forward to the Chase Bank. David Rockefeller was the chairman of this bank for 12 years. It merged with J.P. Morgan Bank to become J.P. Morgan Chase & Company in 2000. It is now one of the largest banks in the world. With assets of $2 trillion. In 2008, it had revenue of $101 billion, 224,000 employees, 5,410 branch offices in 23 states, and offered financial services in 60 countries. From 1990 to the present, this company has made political contributions of over $20 million. In 2008, they invested $4.8 million to help elect the politicians of their choice. In 2003, the SEC charged J.P. Morgan Chase & Company in connection with accounting fraud at Enron. They settled these charges for $135 million. Remember the savings and loan banking scandal of 1989? Daddy Bush gave away billions in bailouts to the banks back then. Now George Jr., with the help of the Obama administration, has spun billions into trillions as banking bailout number 2 is foisted upon the American taxpayer. All of our elected officials participate in legal bribery. Although he just retired, Senator Dodd is a perfect example of this phenomenon. He was chairman of the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. Last election, his 20 top contributors placed $3.2 million into his campaign chest, and they read like a who's who of the banking and insurance industry. Mr. Dodd may be a dramatic example of legal bribery, but by no means is he alone. Sadly, he represents an electorate that is firmly in the back pocket of big business, who also controls the media giants and what the public is allowed to know.